congressional term limits unless and until we create a stable online voters pub community of at least 100 million Americans. Anti-super PACs until our voters pubs make money in politics irrelevant as a bad investment. Support gun rights. Syrian revolutionaries trying to oust their police state dictatorship for the past year with their personal weapons against their military's modern weapons, tanks, and helicopter gunships is the best example for why that's necessary. Win the war on drugs by declaring marijuana possession legal to dent funding of new hard drug dealers from our poverty-stricken neighborhoods. And a 1-month amnesty for all law enforcement personnel for everything but murder if they declare their involvement in tolerating drug distribution in our country and their tax-free gains from payoffs and seized drug money, provided that they name the names of all others they know to have been involved. This will provide us the information needed to eliminate more than half of all drug activity, driving addicts into rehab programs which must become far more effective in reclaiming non-productive Americans back into society. Campaign finance reform via the creation of quasi-anonymous participation in online voters pub communities, desperately needed to control members of Congress as well as local, municipal, and state-level politicians from now on. Restore accountability to public service. End the presumption of lifetime tenure. End benefits for the rich. Means test public subsidies, including tax deductions. Simplify the tax code. Start over with a simple, transparent schedule of rates. End most corporate subsidies. Increase the tax rates for the rich to what they were under Nixon. Make justice reliable. America has become the defensive society, but doctors practice defensive medicine because U.S. hospitals murder 100,000 patients annually due to preventable mistakes. Check that for yourself on Bing or Google. Demand that police chiefs be elected by us according to their qualifications and achievements, to be thoroughly discussed by local voter pub communities. And that police budgets be augmented by state funds or federal loans whenever independently monitored crime rates rise above insignificance. Why should we accept that crime is to be accepted or expected in poor communities? Because billionaires don't want to pay any taxes? Why should we accept that witnesses to crime are too expensive to protect? Why don't we allow them to make video depositions so that it's not necessary for them to be available or alive at the time of the trial, thereby taking away every criminal's motivation for murdering them? Why should we accept that Congress can go on year after year not seating enough judges so that Americans can achieve their rights to a speedy trial? Why shouldn't we allow jurors more control over criminal trials by allowing them to ask questions of witnesses, thereby disrupting the control of dream team defense teams for the wealthy? Why should we accept that billionaires didn't understand what their policies would do to America and Americans? Why should we accept that they still don't understand? Why should we accept that billionaires didn't understand that such policies leading into U.S. bankruptcy are and were a national security threat, just as great as any WMD? Or that they still don't understand? Having spent years writing about the issues that the 99% have been chanting in the streets, 9 years now to be exact, we could speak for days without repeating ourselves, but who would listen? So listen as long as you can. When you've heard enough to get the gist of what I would do as your president, or what we could all do as part of our new online Voters Pub community. Vote for me, join or start a pub of your own, declare yourself as one of America's canaries, pledge to augment everybody's voice, to be heard, so that Americans no longer feel powerless in the face of billionaires who simply shouldn't have as much money as they do. They paid their media to tell us that this is a natural state of affairs. And the joke of that is that, yes, that's true, but democracies were created to solve that kind of state of human affairs, human nature, nepotism, too much power in the wrong hands, whether by divine right or simply too much money, because money is power, not free speech, as our mercenary Supreme Court has ruled. They want to cut Medicare and Social Security to solve a problem Washington, controlled by our billionaires, watched and moaned about for decades. We all know this. We all heard this. But no, billionaires are like ticks on a dog. They have to be removed for the health of the dog, for the health of our economy. They stole their money by bribing Congress to give them tax deductions that they didn't need, to put loopholes in place for them to use, to change laws so that they could pollute our streams and our air with impunity, thereby making their business operations cheaper, no matter who it hurt. They stole their money. Well, as the government of the American people, we can take it right back. We seize it. We call it a wealth tax. Many, many other countries right now are talking about doing the same thing from their wealthy, because in their countries, the same as here, too few people have acquired too much wealth. Here in America, 400 billionaires own more of America than the 150 million of us who own the least. Now, they've told their media to assert to us that it's because Americans are lazy. See, they don't like Americans. They claim to love America, but they don't really care for Americans except as someone to sell their slave labor products to. So we seize their money as a wealth tax. We stop believing in things like, why is it easier for people to believe that 150 million Americans are lazy rather than 400 Americans are greedy, sick, never worked a day in their lives, most of them, started out with millions or billions, and then used their control of our government to parlay that into their fortunes that they use now, that they send overseas to slave labor economies now, rather than employing Americans. We seize their money, enough of it to pay the bills that they ran up on the country's credit card. Or we could go on paying $500 billion in interest every year on that debt that they ran up, $16 trillion now. That's larger than our entire GDP for a year. Let's discuss that. It doesn't sound sustainable to me. It sounds like a short path to bankruptcy and killing our economy completely, thereby collapsing our third of the world's economy, collapsing the whole global economic network. Predicted for years now by credentialed experts who are simply being underemphasized in the billionaires' media because they have plenty of money and they will not suffer any consequences of such a collapse because they simply put their dollars into gold, silver, real estate, etc. That concludes the summary of my platform. There's far more information, 9 years worth, at our website, fresheyesforoldproblems.com, for you to look at if you're interested. I'd discuss more of it, but who's going to listen? If you agree with where we think we should be taking the country, give us a hand. Start an online voters pub or join one. Write me in as president, Gregory M. Stafford of Lawrence, Massachusetts in the USA. And let's see where we go from there. Thanks very much. Bye now.